slave, barbarian, warrior, thief.
Welcome to Movie Matters. I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And today we're talking about the 1982 flick Conan the Barbarian. Schwarzenegger movie. Another one on the podcast. Obviously, big fan of him. I've seen it before, or at least bits and pieces of it, but it was so long ago that I remember literally nothing. And I remember not liking it as a kid, and I feel like my thoughts are very similar. What do you think, Jake?
Yes, this is my first time seeing it for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was fine. Like, I don't know. It's kind of, it's almost like a B movie in a lot of ways. It's okay.
But yet it's not, because, like, the set design is freaking awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, almost everything else about it is very, like, I don't know. It's like weirdly, I can't think of the right word. Like, kitschy isn't quite right, but it's kind of like that. Like, I just don't know, like, like the best way to describe it.
Yeah. My thought process is John Milius was high off his ass making this entire movie. Like, on some drugs for sure, because this movie's just, like, wacky as fuck. But it's like,
wacky is a good way to put it.
Yeah, but it's like
it's trying to take itself seriously. Yes. Yeah, and like it just doesn't. Like, it's kind of like Roadhouse-y, where like it's really trying to be a serious movie, but it just comes off like a little wild and weird.
But yet there are some like there's a lot of cool aspects to the movie. Like it has some redeeming qualities.
Yes, I would agree.
I don't know. Again, I feel like this movie's not in the cream of the crop of the Schwarzenegger filmography.
Definitely not.
But it is the movie that got him his start in Hollywood, pretty much. Mm-hmm. You know, all the people wanted Schwarzenegger for this movie after seeing a rough cut of Pumping Iron, his bodybuilding movie. And this movie got him into it, into acting, you know, and he's not great in this movie acting-wise, but he also doesn't have a ton of lines.
He has like 5 lines in the entire movie.
Yeah, and his classic Arnold sound effects are really there's a lot of them in this movie.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, I mean, like it's rated decently high on IMDb. It's like 6.9 on IMDb. On Letterboxd, it's a 3.5. So, I mean, like almost a 7 out of 10. That's a little high for me.
Surprisingly high. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see like a 5 out of 10. You know, like it's not that's like movie.
Roughly what I think.
It's like it's watchable and enjoyable, but it's not like there's nothing like. Or at least I didn't really find anything like groundbreaking with it. Like, it's just kind of like a fun adventure story.
Yeah.
And like
fantastical adventure story.
Yeah, and like I looked into because I thought it was some kind of novel or something originally, but what the Conan character actually comes from. Like 1930s pulp magazines, which are like kind of like comic book, like novel hybrid type things, and like these were like super cheap, like little magazine like booklet things that people would buy and like read these short little stories, and usually there's like, you know, a handful of them in each issue. Totally different things. Like, and this was one series that was printed regularly in issues. And later, I think in the 50s, it was like actually novelized by two different writers than the original creator, and then gained a lot of popularity. But like this movie very much feels pulpy and like has those elements of like outlandishness and like just like kind of like weird and like wacky stuff,
Yeah.
definitely fits the your original material, I guess.
Yeah. What's the guy's name? Robert E. Howard, who did it?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Apparently, he was like a depressed man, and he ended up committing suicide in life. It's pretty depressing. I mean, he was only 30 years old, and wanted to be this kind of buff man, and like wanted to get all the girls, and that's why he wrote these magazines, or like these little excerpts from what I read, at least briefly, and pretty interesting. But I think this movie is very 80s, even though it takes place in a completely different time than the 80s, because it's so fantastical and kind of like ancient times, but it's not.
It's almost
it's
out
like,
of time. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of like, I think purposefully, there's a lot of like disparate elements from like all these different kinds of like civilizations around the world. Like, he's wearing almost like Mongolian armor in a lot of the scenes, which is kind of like random. And like the temple is like Egyptian-y, and like all the cultists are kind of in these like weird, like I don't even know what type of like robes. Like, it's just very
white
like
robes.
Yeah, it's like like it doesn't pinpoint itself to any specific thing. I think on purpose.
Yeah, I would agree. Oliver Stone wrote the main screenplay, and then John Milius, who directed it, rewrote the screenplay. John Milius will know another movie from him coming up. We're going to do Red Dawn, and he did Red Dawn. He also helped do Apocalypse Now. He's helped on a bunch of stuff. Pretty sure he helped on Apocalypse Now. Yeah, I know he helped on it. But he's a pretty decent director. I just remember I was in this film class in college and watching some documentary about him, and he just kept talking about naked girls like the entire time, and it was fucking weird and creepy. And I feel like this movie has those elements of just like, I'm just going to throw a naked girl in there, and I just want to do that because sex sells, and I think naked girls are great. That's like the vibe I got.
There's a surprising amount of sex in this movie.
Yeah.
Like
out of
especially,
nowhere too.
Yeah, and like doesn't add anything to the story, doesn't add anything to like character development or like anything. And it's like also like the concept of this movie to me is more like young like 10-year-old 12-year-old boy like kind of like content, like some like jack dude just like killing a bunch of people in this like desert or whatever. Like it like I'm like very kind of surprised that this is not a kids movie, or at least like not like a teenager movie. So yeah, I was like a little, because like I didn't even look at like what the rating was or anything. Like I just like turned it on and I was like, oh, this is like kind of weird.
It's It's a pretty hard R.
Yeah.
And it was rated X, and they had to tone down the violence because it was super bloody, which the blood in this movie is, like, very surprising.
I didn't think it was, like, that bad at all.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked it. I just, like, you know, you got, like, heads getting chopped off and the throwing them, and, you know, guys' spleens being split. I don't know. It was pretty, like, I was, again, like, going into it, I was like, this movie is, like, PG, you know? And then you've got sex and a lot of blood and violence. I was like, oh, shit, yeah, this movie, like, is very deserving of its rated R, or its R rating.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I don't know. I like there's scenes in the movie where I'm like, all right, this is cool, and then it just goes on a little too long. Where I'm like, all right, you're kind of ruining that moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was like, that's the epitome of the movie to me.
Yeah. There's also some shitty characters, like the wizard in the desert that's like narrating the movie is just dumb. Like I like.
Well, there's a funny reason they did that. Or
Okay,
at least had that guy as the narrator. It's because they didn't want Arnold narrating it because of his Austrian accent. There I was in the desert trying to kill all these people, and I had sex with all these women, and then I saw a camel, and I saw a camel, and
awesome.
I punched it.
They should have done that.
Yeah, just like, what? But that's literally why they had that guy narrate it, which literally makes no sense. So, but go on. What other characters do you think are pointless?
I mean, like, my biggest gripe is with that guy. Like, he doesn't add anything to the story.
Yeah,
it's just kind of. Who else? The king. That's in it for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, he's in it for and do you know who that is, by the way?
No.
It's Max von Sydow. Do you know who that is? You've seen him in movies before.
It's sounds familiar. I can't place it though.
He was just in. I'm pretty sure he was just in the newest or the first Knives Out was his more recent movie. He just passed away recently, but he's in like Minority Report, Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close. He's in Star Wars episode 7, The Force Awakens, where he's like, "This will change things," and he gives Oscar Isaac some thing I forgot, but he's in it for like 2 fucking seconds. He's in Game of Thrones. He's the three-eyed raven in that.
Okay.
He's in a bunch of like movies. He's a very well-known actor. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he's really good. But yeah, that's Max von Sydow, and apparently, you know, Schwarzenegger knew about him, and this was his first big acting role, and he just like studied the shit out of Max von Sydow and asked him a ton of questions. And James Earl Jones, which James Earl Jones is honestly kind of awesome in this movie, but also fucking weird.
He saves this movie. Like,
yeah.
What his character is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah. I wonder if his eyes are really blue.
I was kind of wondering that myself.
I mean,
he's a great villain.
Oh, maybe they are. Shit. I'm looking on his IMDb profile. They look pretty blue. I'm not gonna lie.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like he plays villains really well. Obviously, he's the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And is unbelievably iconic with his voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he does a really good job in this movie. He has some of the best dialogue in the movie.
Yeah, he's really cool in it.
And yeah, I wish they had fleshed out his arc a little bit more. Like, why does he have this cult and what's he trying to accomplish? Like, it just kind of...
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they didn't really know, so they were just like, he's going to destroy the world. It's like, okay, all right.
And, like, it doesn't even feel like he wants to do that.
Yeah, like you could
Right?
have done a little
Just-
bit better, you know, like
It's just like, oh, I have this princess that no one gives a shit about, and
But-
you have to
and,
rescue her,
like-
but also you killed my dad and mom.
yeah, I don't know. Cuz like I mean, he went and killed, or slaughtered the village
It's like whole
that
village.
Conan
Yeah, which
grew
that
up
scene
in.
is crazy.
Which, yeah, that's actually a pretty great scene.
Yeah, his dad gets fucking mauled by dogs, which is terrible and like
Yeah.
brutal and a horrible death. And then his mom
gets
just like
decapitated.
is literally holding his hand and like looking into Darth Vader's eyes and just gets fucking chopped off with her head, and then
The
you see
360
it fly
no
off,
scope
basically.
sword.
Yeah. So, and then you've got, Conan with his hand just in the air like, what just happened? But that's actually a really
yeah.
cool scene.
It
And
is-
it's like
it is a
very
cool
shocking.
scene. Yeah, and
Tulsa Dune. What a cool name.
Doom, yeah.
Tulsa Doom.
yeah, I don't know. He's definitely one of the better elements of the movie.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, the princess is kind of unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
I
And
almost.
it seems like she doesn't even want to be rescued.
Yeah, it's just
It's
like,
just like, why?
it's a weird plot element for them to have included that, and in the end is just completely trivial to
Yeah.
anything. Like, I feel like they would have been better off being like, oh, they got a tip that like they have a shitload of treasure in this cult and like they're gonna go steal it, or like something like that. And he finds
Yeah.
out, oh, this is the guy that killed my family, and then he wants revenge. You know, like,
Yes,
that's a better, I feel
Yeah.
like, narrative device than, I'm this king, and I'm gonna hire you to go find my daughter, and she doesn't fucking care about anything, and like, and then Conan's like, oh, this is the guy that killed my family, so I don't give a shit about this princess anymore. Like, and she
Yeah.
basically just like disappears, like, like from
Yeah.
the whole movie, like, and he just goes back and kills the villain. Like, what the hell happened
Yeah.
to her? You know?
I don't know.
Like,
And this movie's long. It's like 2
Yeah,
hours
it's
and
a-
like 9 minutes or something.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
long
2 hours and
movie.
9 minutes.
It's like they had the time to properly like flesh things out, but I think
Oh, yeah.
what you said is spot on. Like, they just linger on things a lot that don't need to be lingered on. Like, again, like, there's a lot of sex scenes and they're really long.
Like the one with the one with the witch is like
The
completely
witch one
pointless.
is like way too long and unnecessary. Like,
made no sense to me. I was like, what is happening here?
like, I mean, you know, the witch thing I think is interesting because it kind of sets the scene for like this world, you know, that it's like there's magic
Fantastical
and
nature,
shit,
the
you know? It's
sorcery,
like
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know why she turns into like a demon in the middle of banging, you know? Like, it's just,
The sex wasn't good.
yeah.
I don't know.
It is hilarious that he like whips her through a fire though.
Yeah, that part was funny. Yeah, I mean, dude, this movie, for it being a 2 hour and 9 movie and like a fantastical movie like this, it was made for 20 million, which is kind of a lot for 1980, 82. Well, it was filmed in 80, but it was a modest hit. I mean, it made around 70 or so million, roughly. So, and it spawned a sequel. There were supposed to be like 4 movies made, and Schwarzenegger was signed on for all of them. They only made 2, and then there was a remake, which apparently the remake is garbage. And I've not seen Conan the Destroyer, which is the second one. But as of like 2007, I read that this movie's made like over 300 million now, just from like reoccurring revenue and shit, and like all repeat viewings and all that. I think the most interesting fact I found was, and it's an urban legend apparently, they were going to have a Conan toy line. And Mattel was going to start, the story is that Mattel started making these action figures But after viewing the film, because of all the sex and the violence, they're like, we're not going to be able to sell this to kids. So they changed it and made him into He-Man.
See, like, that's the vibes that I get from this movie.
Yeah, and He-Man came out in 83. Came out later.
That seems super plausible.
Yeah, so, but,
And like,
well,
and that's like exactly...
He-Man was technically created in 81, I read, but there was like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, I think is what it is, was in 83. But still, pretty interesting.
But I mean, like, this is like, this would have been the perfect tie-in for like all that kind of like merchandise and stuff like that if it was marketed towards kids, you know? Like,
yeah.
I just don't, I don't understand why they went so hard R, like,
because it's John Milius. I feel like that's literally why. He's just like, yeah, I want to see him bang a witch and chop people's heads off. I feel like that's it. So, you know, if you guys if you guys watched our last episode, I was in Chicago and was with Jake, and we watched the movie together. And I was thinking, you know, that this would be. I was just curious if we'd be on different sides of the fence of this movie. I wondered if you'd like it, and I didn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we haven't, you know, obviously watching it in person feels a little different because I feel like we could sway each other's opinions even more in person because we could talk about it before we, like, you know, do this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly prefer this method of, obviously we're in different states, so that's how it works. But I prefer this method of we watch the movie separately and then so for those listening, we don't discuss this prior, like we don't discuss anything really prior to any of these recordings. So this is all fresh, and we don't know if one or the other is going to like it. And it just, I don't know, I like that, and it really makes for fun discourse. So I was just, you know, I was thinking about that today prior to, you know, obviously getting on this and recording this, but I find that interesting. I like that.
I had a feeling we were going to be on the same page about this because, like, I think, you know, like I said, it's like it's a fun fantasy movie. It's not groundbreaking. It's not incredibly, you know, a great screenwriting or even the camera work's not that great. Like, but I mean, it's like it's hard to just like shit on it because like. It's at least watchable, like in like you know, it's not bad.
No, it's not bad
it's just
at all.
Not great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like it's coming out in 4K Blu-ray soon. Like I'm not gonna buy it. And I'm glad I didn't, you know, wait and buy it. It was on Netflix, so it was an easy stream. It looked pretty decent quality-wise, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to watch it again. I would like to watch the sequel, even though the sequel has an even worse rating on IMDb. So I'd be curious how it stacks up. I do want to do, and I've been thinking about this. I do want to do like a sequels month with you, where we do sequels to the movies we've already reviewed. So like we've done, you know, First Blood. We do, you know. First Blood Part 2, which would be cool. We could do this. We're going to do Back to the Future in the future. And, like, doing the second one would be cool. Like, stuff like, I feel like that would be a fun month to do.
Yeah. And there's
you know,
a lot of them in the 80s.
There's a lot. Yeah, I'd like to do, like, Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2. I think that'd be funny. But let us know your thoughts on that, if we should do a sequels month. Yeah, I mean, apparently the violence in this movie, I mean, we've talked about it a bit now, but it polarized fans and critics. And some felt the film had too many deaths in it, it was too violent. Others thought the violence was exciting and well executed. But like, all those claim that it's kind of cartoonish on purpose because it's based on, you know, those kind of pulp novels. Yeah, and people think that's why it kind of hurt the box office a little bit, just because of how violent it was. Again, I didn't mind it. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, we're '90s kids, so we're exposed to a lot of hyper violent movies. So like,
Yeah.
this is like nothing compared to
No.
like Terminator 2 or like some of the other like big
Like
90s
Total Recall.
Total
Total
Recall
Recall is like super
yeah.
violent and awesome.
But I like honestly like I almost expect more out of this movie. Like he's supposed
Yeah.
to be this like killing machine based on like the beginning part where he's like a gladiator and stuff. I feel like he gets knocked down a lot and like
I know.
doesn't really like fight that well. Like
Yeah. Well, he's not like
relies
his
on, like,
macho.
traps and like stuff like that, which is like whatever. Like he's supposed to be intelligent too, which is like I get it. But yeah, like I was expecting like mass slaughter and like just didn't get it.
Well, it's Arnold, but he didn't get into that until Terminator and
like,
post Terminator.
I'm waiting for like the Commando moment where he's just like ripping through people and like it just never really came. It was a lot of like one-on-one
chopping dudes' arms off.
kind of like black as sword, and then like you said, it's kind of like cartoony sword swipes that like aren't very well executed, and you get a little bit of like red on the ground or on people's clothes. It's like okay,
And I feel like that's one reason I don't like it as I just don't like it as much as I should, or like I just don't care for it as much as other Arnold movies, is because I feel like he gets like tortured, he gets his ass kicked in this movie, and like I'm used to seeing Arnold just wreck everyone, like when he gets captured by Thulsa Doom, he's like all bloody and fucked up, and then he's crucified and getting his fucking arm pecked out by some vultures, and then he
dies.
Eats one. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like it is what it is. Maybe we're just tainted by like the invincible hero Arnold from the rest of this decade.
Yeah,
but
great point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little surprising how ineffective I think is like the best way to describe some of his moments in the movie, like as the hero.
And I think the only moments that he's like really wrecking people is like where he's the gladiator, kind of.
Yeah,
and that's like such a very brief moment.
Yeah, and
I don't know
when he's fighting the guys in the like stone pillar, kind of area, he does wreck some people in there, but not like, I don't know, like I'm expecting him to take on like 50 people unassisted,
Yeah,
like
50 on one,
not like 7. And then like the bow and arrow guys helping him out too. It's like,
I like that character, by the way.
I did too.
Excuse me, I like that character.
He
was awesome.
A little upset he wasn't more prominent. Like,
yeah. I think my favorite line is where he's like, "I know Conan won't cry. I'll cry for him." That was awesome. Like, I love that line. That line was sick. But Arnold, there's a lot of like animal cruelty in this movie.
Yeah.
So, the first instance is where Arnold punches that camel. He literally punches that fucking camel.
Yeah.
Like, that's real. And knocks that fucker to the ground. Like, dude, I felt so bad for that camel, because it's like, it gets hit and it like stumbles and then it's just like, oh shit, and falls to the ground.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And then, obviously the snake is fake, but like, he fucks that snake up, dude.
Yeah.
Like, sword through the fucking mouth, and then, pins it to the wall with the bow and arrows. His buddy does that. And then apparently those were real arrows that were shooting right next to Schwarzenegger's head. And John Milius was the one that the director shot them. He's like, I'm the best at this, so let me do it. Again, I think the guy, the guy was high off his ass, and he's just like, I can do it. I got it. And just
drug-induced fever dream.
Yeah, just like super uber confident, like, I can do this. Like, reminds me of, like, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they're all fucking trashed. But they, like, dance, and it shows, like, this awesome dance number, but then in reality it shows they're all, like, sweaty and gross. Like, that's what I picture. Because Milius, I don't think, was, like, a skinny guy either. Not that being fat has anything to do with it, but just makes a better image, personally.
Yeah,
No disrespect to overweight people. But. And then, like, when Arnold's getting chased by those dogs, and he stumbles into that, like, Crom's, like, cavern or whatever, those dogs were, like, literally about to fucking rip him apart, I read. And, like, dude, he, like, narrowly escaped them. Like, he's literally running for his fucking life is what I read, which is crazy. And someone apparently, I don't know who it was, but they say someone kicked a dog on set, which is fucked up. Don't like that. What else? Horses were tripped. So, yeah, like, the American Humane Society.
There's a lot of horses that go down in this movie.
Yeah, some are trained stunt horses that like doing that, from what I read as well. But, like, some were, like, literally tripped that were just, like, not stunt horses.
There were a few instances where somebody gets, like, ripped off a horse, and it's like, I don't think you can fake that. Like,
no.
Like, there were some that were clearly, like, they were whipping that horse to the ground. It's like, ooh.
Well, apparently, I mean, like, there's a lot of stunts in this movie, and I mean, they're done pretty well. Schwarzenegger and the girl that plays Valeria, his love interest in this, Sandal Bergman, they both had to do their own stunts because they didn't have stunt doubles that, like, matched their physical features, which also is pretty impressive because they do some pretty cool shit.
Yeah.
And I think Sandal Bergman, Valeria, in this movie fucking is awesome. She rocks it in this movie. Like, she's so badass.
I liked her character a lot. She acts it pretty well. I feel like her dialogue is pretty good too.
Decent.
Like,
there's only a couple parts where she's like, a little cringy.
Yeah. I mean, but, like, for the most part, like, she's not bad. She has some of the better lines in the movie, same as James Earl Jones. Yeah. I think it's, she was a good addition to the movie, unlike the stupid wizard. I'm still kind of upset about the wizard. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought she fucking rocked it, and it's just like, it was really cool to see, you know, especially in the 70s and 80s, like, they didn't have women kicking ass in movies until, well,
Alien.
I was going to say Alien and Aliens, but, like, they didn't have a ton in general. I mean, that's the one outlier, you know what I mean? So that was pretty cool to see, and they did it very well. Like, she just was she was very deserving of kicking ass, in my opinion, because her character was cool. Her character was just cool. Yeah, I mean, just, I don't know, it just, she kind of dies kind of funky a little bit, but, like, she's told she's gonna die. Her death could have been more impactful for me, except when he burns her. I thought that was pretty cool. And then that's when Sabatoy, or the you know, Conan's right-hand man's like, oh, I'll cry for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like, did you read anything on the, like, Nietzschean background that they use, or, like, ideology that they use in this movie? And, like,
no,
I read some of it, but I was just like, that's too much for me. Like, this
too
movie,
much
Conan,
psychobabble.
Sure. Yeah. I was like, I don't really care too much about that. But what I did read that I thought was cool was, you know, his character is influenced by existentialism. Despite his creation before the heyday of this philosophy, he defies his own purpose and shapes his own destiny. He's not, you know, some godlike. He's not destined to be king. He's just a man that's fucking jacked. He doesn't have a noble birth. You know, he's not the chosen one. And I think that's cool. He does it on his own. He's a self-determining man, and I like that, you know, that it's not, oh, this person's meant to do this all their life. It's just some, you know, it's Schwarzenegger of all people who's fucking jacked, and sure, he'll do it. But I don't know. I just thought that was pretty interesting and pretty cool to read that.
Well, and like, what's cool about him is that, you know, he's kind of this like puny kid in the beginning of the movie, and basically he gets ripped by just being a like never-ending working slave in this like camp, and he's the only one that survives out of the like 12 people that are like brought to that place with him, and he does all the work of those 12 people on his own, which is like kind of crazy.
I mean, that's a very Schwarzenegger thing too. It's like him carrying the giant log in Commando. It's very reminiscent of that, in my opinion. It's like, you know, he's more than man, even though, you know, he's just a man.
Yeah, that I do like the line that's narrated that like he becomes king by his own hand. Like that's kind of alludes to that like self-determination, and that like he's not. You know, he's going and getting it, you know, like it's nothing's just given to him, you know.
He gonna get that.
He's gonna get that for sure.
Getting that,
but like, yeah, I mean, it's a cool character. It is kind of a cool like world that it builds.
Oh yeah. And again, the set designs are awesome. Like, the temple is fucking cool. Like, so cool. It's so well done. Again, you don't see that a lot these days, for the most part, in my opinion. Yeah,
like, you know, in a lot of ways, this movie is kind of an epic. There are some of those big landscape shots, you know, that really like bring some like awe and like, you know, inspiration to the movie, and really help, I think, place the sets, you know, in this like kind of mystical kind of world, you know, and like it has that, like, I mean, this is like, it's not quite a hero's journey in like the traditional sense, but like, it kind of is, but it's also just like a straight revenge movie by the end, which like I'm on board with.
Yeah, me too.
You know, those are always fun.
What do you think of the soundtrack? I think the soundtrack's awesome in this movie.
I thought the soundtrack was good. There were some times where I was like, it kind of took me out of what was happening. But for the most part, it fit very well with everything. Like, I don't know it's almost like medieval sounding, but
it's like kind of
like a lot of the time, and
it's almost like techno-y almost.
But yeah, it gets a little
I don't know. It's
a
pretty
tad
cool,
80s in certain times, but yeah,
I liked it. I thought that was awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, you know, we were talking about the rating earlier. It's like a 5.5 for me out of 10. It's like, it's passable because it's just like fun in certain instances. If it was dialed back and like edited for like maybe 20 minutes, if this movie was like an hour and 50 minutes, I think it would be a lot better.
Yeah.
So
I'd agree.
I'm curious. I'm gonna look up how long the sequel is.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. Like 5.5 out of 10. Worth watching. Like, if you're gonna sit down and watch something on Netflix and you're like, I don't know what to pick, like, just watch this. Like, you won't be upset that you spent the 2 hours watching it. But you're not gonna walk away like, wow, that was the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah, it's like one of those kind of classics that you're like, all right, I've seen that, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone knows about this. You know, it's Schwarzenegger's debut. Conan the Destroyer is an hour and 43 minutes, and it's PG.
Yeah, see?
That's interesting. Maybe that's why the rating's a lot less. I wonder why they went from R to PG. I mean, obviously at this time they didn't really have PG-13, or it was just coming about. But they have Andre the Giant in there. Oh, cool. Might have to watch that.
Yeah, we'll add it on the list if it isn't already.
Yeah, we should. Speaking of lists, next month, July, we're going to do kind of an America month, and we're going to start that off with Top Gun, which I'm excited for. And we're going to do some fun American movies, and I think that'll be good because I've been liking that we're watching a lot of movies that I haven't seen. I mean, that's like the whole thing too. Is like I want to see all these movies. I've seen a lot of movies in my life, but I want to see movies. I don't know. I'm just like really into watching movies even more so as of late. Like it's been hard to watch TV shows for me for some reason. I'm just like I want movies. I want to watch movies, and I want to watch stuff that I haven't seen.
Yeah. Same. Me and my wife fell into the rut of just rewatching The Office, Parks and Rec, and 30 Rock over and over again. And it's nice to every week just be like, all right, something new, something
Good.
different.
I'm glad. Yeah. And it was fun. Again, it was fun watching it together. I'm glad we got to do that in person and do our last podcast in person and have some drinks while doing it. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm ready for the next movie. You've seen Top Gun, yeah?
Yeah. But
okay, good.
I have not. I've seen 2 out of the 5 movies for July. So I'm excited to see some of these other ones.
I've seen 2. We've probably seen the same 2.
I think so. Because I'm pretty sure we watched Full Metal Jacket together.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, we're doing that movie.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next week. July already. Crazy.
Yeah, I know. See ya.
Take care.